I was like, uh-oh, how loud am I? Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn Barnwell, and today is Sunday, July 12th, and the theme for this month is Go to the Woods. Our minister, Leon Dunkley, will be giving the reflection today called Deepest Love of Country Wins the Day. And now for announcements. There are lots of things going on at North Chapel each week. Please take time to read the many announcements in your order of service. I didn't have anyone tell me they wanted to make an announcement. Is there anyone who would like to pop up and make an announcement? You can visit the church website for all the news, and Tatum is here for spiritual exploration with children of all ages. If you're visiting today, we would love to have you sign the guest book at the back of the church. Are there any visitors who would like to stand up and be welcomed? I see lots of familiar faces. It's so nice. Please turn off your cell phone and other devices. And after the service, everyone is invited to join us downstairs for coffee, tea, and snacks in the social hall and to visit with one another. I saw lots of good juice happening down there too. I love this month's theme of Go to the Woods because it has a verb built into it, go. So often our themes are a single noun or a noun phrase like gratitude, freedom, choosing hope. Beautiful, but a little abstract. This one directly asks us to do something. I regularly go to the woods as a spiritual and energetic practice, both literally and in my imagination. So I'd like to invite you to join me in imagining going to the woods together right now. So close your eyes if you're comfortable, and imagine that we're walking from the edge of the grass into a cool green forest. And find a stable spot to stand and look around. Perhaps you notice the ferns, the moss, the different shapes of the leaves fluttering in the wind, the tree branches. And instead of just standing there looking, actually connect to the woods. Feel roots growing down out of your pelvis, out the bottoms of your feet, down into the earth, down past the topsoil, into the mycelium, and what's sometimes called the wood wide web, into that vast underground network of roots and other organisms. You are part of it. Now feel the upward expansion as if you are a tree, pulling the nutrients from the earth, branches growing out of your shoulder blades, your ribs, your arms, reaching up and out towards that golden summer sunlight. You're sturdy and rooted and also adaptable, able to bend and sway in the wind without breaking. Feel your breath moving in and out. The same air the leaves are breathing too. Their oxygen becomes your breath, and your breath becomes their air. An exchange back and forth with every breath you take here in the woods. Letting yourself settle into that rhythm for a few more breaths. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Thank you. As the theme description says, the forest teaches resilience, connection, humility, and wonder, reminding us that we're part of something larger than ourselves. It reminds me of the plain truth that we're not separate from nature. We are part of nature. And I'd like to briefly share what going to the woods has meant to me personally. If I can actually speak. From 2011 to 2020, I lived in Washington, D.C. And my husband and I deliberately chose an apartment that was right next to Rock Creek Park, which is technically a national park, with old growth trees and streams and dirt paths worn by decades of footsteps. It didn't feel like we lived in the city because we could just open the windows and look into the tree canopy and hear the sound of the water. And I would go out there constantly to connect with nature and with my own emotions. I remember one particular season of my life of very intense transformation, facing the depths of my anguish as I tried and tried and tried to get pregnant. There was no medical explanation for why it didn't happen. I would go into that forest and sit with my back against this huge, beautiful oak. Leon and I were just talking about oaks, and he didn't know this. And I would cry and pray, and in the thick of it, the prayer was, please help. I will do whatever it takes. And then in June 2020, we decided to leave, and we moved here to Woodstock. And I made a decision. I would stop with the help prayer, and I would embrace a total enjoyment of Vermont summertime. Walks in the forest and planting perennials and floating in our spring-fed pond looking up at the woods. And I relaxed into the energy of surrender. The prayer became, thank you. Thank you, nature, for all of this bounty. And I felt saturated and held. And I decided that I would become the archetype of mother. Mother with a capital M, like Mother Earth, regardless of whether I gave birth or not. And I got pregnant my very next cycle. Which is why this is so emotional for me. My daughter actually slept in the woods for her first time last night in a tent, and she loved it so much that she wanted to stay in the tent and not come here. So she's still out there right now. I've kept returning to the forest ever since for everything it continues to show me, especially about resilience and acceptance. Resilience isn't always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about surrender. So as we share this time together, my invitation to all of us is to actually go to the woods. If that's not your thing, you could still pause and imagine, like we did, letting your roots grow down, your branches grow wide, connecting and breathing with the plants around you. And please remember also that you can just have the simplest prayer ever. Thank you. And that sometimes that's enough.
Bob Dylan was kind of famous for saying that he was born very far from home and he's always been trying to find his way back home. It turned his life into an odyssey. He was born in Minnesota. You know. This is kind of funny to me. But he's one of, like Homer, he's one of the epic storytellers of our time. He's able to tell the epic story of our life. Story and life are singular here. Not stories and lives, but story and life. For a good reason, they're singular. For a deeply patriotic reason, they're singular. I used to feel funny about patriotism, but the way I see it now, patriotism is really kind of an act of finding one's way home. In 1775, it was a man named Samuel Johnson who said, now famously, that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. In the original draft, I accidentally wrote Samuel Jackson, who said that. In 1775, I was rereading it this morning and was like, But Samuel Johnson, who said, the last refuge of a scoundrel, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. I wonder what he would say today. He meant to criticize corruption in politics, not to condemn one's love of country. His quote carries only part of its original meaning these days, with how suddenly we shatter, with how quickly we race to our defenses, with how fiercely we fight. So our two great houses struggle now, the one on the left and the one on the right side of the aisle. Both are trying to find the good way home. Each of them is driven off course by the other, and by life's many twists and turns, much like Odysseus. When we finally get there, though, we're gonna sing, hey, it's good to be back home again. I wonder if Jim Lovell sang that song to Marilyn when he found his way back home after an odyssey of more than 622,000 miles. When their mission was doomed, when their spacecraft was dying, when they realized that they had lost the capacity to land on the moon as they had planned, after having risked their lives to do so, a question came. Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, turned to his two crewmen and said something important. He said, gentlemen, what are your intentions? I would like to go home. He was training their minds away from the obvious catastrophe, and he was preparing them and himself for the journey ahead. Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. Today is Sunday, July 12th, and the title of this morning's reflection is Deepest Love of Country Wins the Day. It's inspired by a national anthem called America, played by Crosby, Stills, and Nash soon after 9/11. That's the version that we did. I grew up thinking that the title of this song was My Country, 'Tis of Thee. But it's actually America, and it preceded the national anthem by, I think, a century. You can check me on that. I didn't know that the melody had different allegiances originally. We used to sing, God save our gracious King, right? Long live our noble King. God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King. We sang God save the King, and then we sang God save the Queen, and then we had a revolution, and we changed all the words. In 1831, Samuel Francis Smith rewrote the words in seminary. He was attending the Andover Newton theological school in Massachusetts, north of Boston, and he wrote 4 verses to the hymn, to the pre-existing hymn. The first one is familiar to us, My Country, 'Tis of Thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died. But there were many fathers and many mothers who died on this sweet land. And there was freedom ringing from mountains long before the pilgrims' pride. We are a complex people, and we are in the early stages of understanding this. We are understanding ourselves more deeply, and we did so when Aretha Franklin sang Sam Smith's words with graciousness and dignity at the inauguration of Barack Obama in 2013. She sang the first verse and the fourth. The fourth is the fourth verse is, Our Father is God to thee, authors of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God, our King. The King and Queen of England were written out of the music by a 23-year-old kid in seminary, a young adult who clearly knew that country is a political state, and that country is also music, and that country is also prayer. A country is all of these things at once. How do we make these things most beautiful? The state, the music, the prayer. Who are we called to be, and who are we called to become to make more perfect our union and to make the world a better place? From every mountainside, I say welcome to all souls. It's good to be together. Jack Smith is reminding us of important human values. You know who Jack Smith is. Jack Smith is the former special counsel in Washington, D.C., whose job it was to investigate the mishandling of classified documents, and before that, to investigate the tragic events that unfolded on January 6th of 2021, the day that the U.S. Capitol was stormed by a violent crowd contesting the election that put Joe Biden in the White House. Jack Smith is intrepid. He is a marathon runner. Not quite as good as Ed, but he's a marathon runner. He's also an excellent lawyer out of Harvard University. He is a fierce competitor and a gentle and dignified man. Despite being publicly derided by high-ranking officials in government, he remains gentle and dignified. He is an artful leader and a deeply courageous soul. I love the things that he said about his father. He said, I grew up in a place where I was the first person in my family to go to college. I grew up where people didn't wear suits and ties. My dad worked in a factory most of his life. My dad supervised 0 people. He never supervised a single person, but he gave me the tools that I needed for my career. Smith says it's funny because when I talk to my father, he can't imagine the world that I'm in and the things that I've done in my life. But I couldn't have done them without the sort of foundation that he gave me. And what world is Jack Smith in? What things has he done with his life? Jack Smith worked at the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands. He was the investigations coordinator and the special prosecutor for sets of unfolding crises in Kosovo. He investigated crimes that took place during the war. He's quite accomplished. He says, unsentimentally, that it all began with his dad somehow, perhaps in ways that his father doesn't understand. But it's just human kindness. It's decency and dignity and simple human kindness. That's Jack Smith. In his opening statement before Congress, he said beautiful things. He said, I love my country, and I believe deeply in its core principles, the principles on which it was founded. For nearly 3 decades, I have served as a career prosecutor in both Republican and Democratic administrations. I've handled cases ranging from domestic assault to gang violence, public corruption, and election crimes in the United States. I have prosecuted war crimes overseas. I am not a politician. I have no partisan loyalties. My career has been dedicated to serving our country by upholding the rule of law. Full stop. He said these good words in closing. He said, after nearly 30 years of public service, including international settings, I have seen how the rule of law can erode. My fear is that we have seen the rule of law function in our country for so long that many of us have come to take it for granted. The rule of law is not self-executing. It depends on our collective commitment to apply it. It requires dedicated service on behalf of others, especially when that service is difficult or comes at a cost. Our willingness to pay this cost is what tests and defines our commitment to the rule of law in this wonderful country. Thank you, end quote. Jack Smith reminds me of the words of Cornel West, who says, it's always been a tradition in this country to say, Whosoever will, let him or her come forward if you're willing to make certain moral choices, political commitments, and pay a cost. It reminds me of the words of the great James Baldwin, who said, "The day will come when you will trust you more than you do now, when you will trust me more than you do now. I truly do believe in the New Jerusalem," he said. "I really do believe that we can become better than we are. I know we can. It's just that the price is enormous, and we are not yet willing to pay." We must now be willing to pay. It's always been an American tradition to magnify our commonality. The opposite of this is also true. So what is your choice? What is your spiritual decision about how you will live your life? Because I don't exactly know what our country is without bravest decisions here. As Mary Oliver says, I don't exactly know what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So how should we get started? Knowing soul level deep, the deepest love of country wins the day. It will be expensive for sure. Lovers of freedom have expensive tastes. It cannot be otherwise. How will we willfully, lovingly, joyfully pay this cost? T.S. Eliot said that freedom is not something that we inherit. If we want it, we must attain it at great labor. We have to fight for it and sacrifice for it. This labor, this fight, this sacrifice is central to the cost. I labor, I fight, I sacrifice, most certainly I do. How is it with you? What costs are you now willing to pay? What costs will you refuse to pay? Will you be willing to pay the cost for true community? Will you refuse to pay the cost of greed and false righteousness? It's difficult to know right now because we can't agree on our facts, because we're fighting with one another, and because we're telling such different stories and it's tearing us apart, which is dangerous for people who believe themselves to be indivisible. It's dangerous, and we have to dig deep right now. Deep enough to remember our complexity. And we must be braver than we've ever been before. Did you hear what just happened in Philadelphia? Near to where the Declaration of Independence was signed. Apparently, and this I quote, the National Park Service removed a display from a historic site known as President's House. It's along Independence Mall in Philadelphia. Of course, President's House was the first White House. It was where George Washington lived. The removed exhibit described the lives of the 9 enslaved men and women who lived in one of the homes that George Washington occupied as president. The Department of Interior has proposed a new exhibit that would contain fewer references to enslaved people and place less emphasis on George Washington's history as an enslaver. Signage has been removed, but the controversy is far from over. Since the exhibit's removal, volunteers in Philadelphia have been standing at the site sharing the original text that was removed from the exhibit with visiting tourists. They're not handing out pamphlets in Philly. They're sharing the original texts verbally, one-to-one. Rarely is it wise to mess with Philadelphia. Obviously, there is shame and sensitivity about the issue of American slavery, particularly in this time of anniversaries. And we talked last week about guilt and shame. We talked about how guilt has the power to open the door that leads to responsibility and accountability, that leads to things like integrity and forgiveness. We talked about how shame has the power to close those same doors. So it seems to me that shame is driving the public conversation these days. But there's good news. So much more is available to us. What we have to do now is dig deeply enough to reveal our common ground. What we must do right now is dig lovingly enough to reveal our rootedness, our entanglement, our radical togetherness, and our interconnections, even though it feels like we don't understand one another as well as we need to right now. We really need to understand one another. We have been misunderstanding and tearing ourselves apart for far too long. I know now that I can't stop that process. I know that I can't understand others unless I learn to understand myself, the grief that I'm dealing with personally, the sorrow that I'm running from. I need them because they help me to get to my joy. Jack Smith said something else that's interesting to me. He said something that was interesting on a spiritual level. He said, there's one thing I want to be clear about. In the cases that I investigated, they were built to withstand they were built to be fought out in a courtroom, not in the media. They were built to withstand what he called the crucible of litigation, not the scandal cycle of commercial media. I want to say more about that, but I won't right now. It's important to understand that it's that crucible, that sanctuary, that sacred place where we fight most passionately, most fervently, and most honestly, and are able to distill our best and highest values. As you may know, and those values are based not simply in abstract ideals, but they're rooted in our very lives. And the more courageous we are at telling our truths, the stronger the trees will grow, the stronger we will be. As you may know, I lost a friend recently. He died in a car accident in early June. Years ago, he had been diagnosed with a terrible cancer that was ready to take him. So he gathered his crew on Star Island, a place where we met in 1994. There were 60 of us or so who had gathered in his name, praying to God that he would not die. And he didn't. He beat his cancer. He beat it slowly over time, and it's my understanding that his body was cancer-free last year. So the pain is more piercing and the sorrow more exquisite that he died in a car accident last month. In a little less than 2 weeks, I will have the honor of honoring my friend Scott in Brooklyn, where he lived. I suspect that there will be 150 to 200 people in attendance, with best friends zooming in from other countries, holding tiny vigils around the world. His spirit was such. He could make you feel like best friends in only minutes. I wrote a poem for our coming time in Brooklyn that I want to share with you, and I'll tell you why. It's called Stone into Walden Pond, and it takes place both at Star Island in Rye, New Hampshire, and at Water's Edge in Concord, Massachusetts. Stone into Walden Pond. Over my shoulder now, one small canvas bag, army issue green, holding my book, my knife, my flashlight, 2 beers, 2 cold enough beers, that is. One in a sock of thick wool, which keeps them both from sounding. 2 beers, just in case I run into a friend who is into it. At Lover's Cave, or at the breakwater, or before the gray Atlantic, or on the rooftop of the world in my dreaming. Walden is as close as I can get today. My book, my knife, my flashlight, 2 beers, and a stone dug out from my garden, and dug out from the greenest garden in all the world, it seems to me. A garden with sunflowers, with soul flowers blooming over, 9 feet up in the air, where the bird layer begins, the seagull layer just so close to me, just above my head, where he lives right now, where I can't reach just yet. Set out early with young light, the same young light that he had in his heart, gentle, warm, quietly ferocious, fierce, impeccable, quietly incandescent, soft, brilliant, constant, still now, set out early to get to the far side of Walden Pond not too long after sunrise, away from the visitor center, away from the Thoreau House replica and the statue outside dressed up like it was still 1851. So out of style and so perfect. I take selfies, pretend that we were friends, because I still love what Thoreau said about the marrow 175 years ago. Set out early with his young light, his light that I keep in my heart, poured all the blues I had in my pocket into a prayer for him, poured the prayer into a stone that I dug up from the garden, hurled the stone into the stillness, into the morning glass of Walden, drove the stone into the glass with a strength enough that would impress the holy, watched the stone touch down at center, nothing even shattered but the heart. The stone passed lightly, almost splashlessly into the tiny sea, like a perfect diver in competition. Then there we were, instantly rippling out from him successively, calmly rippling, each of us, little waves, shorebound, in ever-widening circles, blessed for having touched that little piece of God, the little piece that is joy, the little piece that is love, the little piece that is death and sorrow, with laughter at the ready, with laughter in the echo. The laughter that belonged to him and belongs to us. Scotty was a Star Islander. Each morning at Star, we raised the flags, the rainbow flags, because we like love and everything like that. And the flags for the Unitarian Universalist Association and for the United Church of Christ, the two organizations who jointly owned and operate the island. And the United Nations flags, because we are part of a larger world. And the American flag, because this is our country, 'tis of thee. And because deepest love of country wins the day. If Scott and I were talking right now, with all manner of things being exactly as they are, he might ask me a simple question. He might ask, what are your intentions? How will you now find your way back home? And if he did, then and only then I would reach down into my canvas bag, the one I have over my shoulder, the one holding my book, my knife, my flashlight, my 2 cold enough beers, and I would offer one to him by the water. And he and I would have a time talking about how to make the world a better place, talking about the deepest love of country, talking about what we can still do to do good in the world. If there is a heaven, I will do precisely this the next time I see him. And all of you should come. It'll be a heavy bag with a lot of beers, but all of you should come. I think that he would really love to meet you, because he would see in you the very same light that he saw in me, the light of faith, the light of hope, the light of love, the light of courage, and the twin lights of joy and sorrow woven fine, with laughter at the ready, with laughter in the echo. As we move forward in life, may we remember that life is brief and that we are here to enjoy it. And when the weather is rough outside, there is space enough at North Chapel to protect you. And when we need some peace, this sanctuary will provide. And if you're looking for a spiritual home and you can't find one, look no further than your own heart or mine or the hearts of those around you. We have strength enough together to be on our way. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.